Howdy, folks. So the other day I got a comment on one of my videos. It was my video about shaping stem rabbets on models. Now, the fact that it was on a model is irrelevant. The lesson was really about how to chop a stem rabbit. The person who gave me a question, who was looking at some plans, was trying to work out how the transition of the garboard goes from what we call the apron, which is the keelson or the keel batten, different names for the same thing, as it makes its transition onto the stem, how you fasten that, because he couldn't see anywhere that the plank could be fastened because it looks like it's just sitting on edge. So I'm over at my friend's place. He happened to have a stem and keel assembly that was partially done, and so we can actually take a look at that and just sort of try and help to give you a better idea as to how those integrate with each other and how you can go about shaping them. So let's just take a look at it right now. I've just propped this up against a tree to try and demonstrate. So here we've got a stem rabbet. Okay, so the rabbet is the notch. We call this leading line the rabbet line. The one in the back is the back rabbet. Let me find a stick to point at here. So the very back of it, we call this the back rabbet. So the rabbet line, the back rabbet, and then this is what we call the bearding line. This is where the surface fares out to the face of the stem. And a lot of the work in chopping rabbets is working out this bearding line, getting this surface to lie flat with the run of the plank. So down here, ignore the grain direction because this is a funny assembly here. Down here we have the keelson or the hog. I like to call it the hog. Some people call it the apron as well. As it makes this transition onto the stem, this person could not work out what's going on here because in their eyes all they could see is this sort of right angle point where they couldn't see how you could possibly fasten the planking. So when you actually look at it though, you can see how the plank quickly winds from what's kind of horizontal. It makes this transition to vertical in a very short span. And so when you're building your boat, you need to make your apron or hog stop winding the bevel out to back here. You want to sort of take a bevel that's back here and just run it straight through and leave this unresolved until it's assembled. Same thing with the rabbet. You would chop it as best as you can, leaving some meat behind. And as you get down towards this area here, again, you start to leave it unresolved. You leave just enough of it defined to continue the line, but ultimately you need to wait till you've got it all assembled before you can connect the dots. And once you have those dots connected, then you can start working out these bevels. So this is by far the trickiest part of the entire boat construction, is getting this winding bevel in there properly. So I'm going to just try and demonstrate ways that I would do it. Now, of course, without tools, but what I do is I take like a flexible batten and I would, as best I can, put it up against my molds running at right angles to the rabbet. And if you do that properly, and if you can wrap this around two molds, even better, because a straight line is not exactly what we're going to get with the planking. But it's by doing this, you can get a feel for how those angles are coming together in there, and you would start chopping down slowly till you get those looking right. So you do a combination of that and creating like a false plank using a light batten that you can clamp to your keelson or your hog and then wind it into place so that you can get a feel for how that twist happens. And it's in here this is the real tricky area, right? So you're just slowly working at it, and that's going to take you a while. This is not going to be fast. You might be at it for a couple hours on your first one before you finally figure out what the shape needs to be. Once you get the first one done, then the next one is going to go a lot faster because you'll have a better feel for it. But in terms of fastening, obviously there's lots of room to fasten the plank through what we call the hood end here. The garboard is going to run down here. It's got the most twist, but it's down in here that this person could not see how you could possibly fasten it. But if you look at it, there is in fact a fair bit of meat in the face of the stem here, and as you get into the hog or the keelson, it starts to lose a little bit of meat here, but that's where you see some boats where they've riveted the planks in place because you've only got this thin bit of material to fasten to, or you might see nails protruding over and getting clenched into place. But it's not unreasonable to add another layer of keelson to make up for the lack of thickness here until you get into the meatier stuff. And there's a lot of traditional construction where you'll see this whole area built up of separate little parts. Now I'm calling this the apron, but it's also called the hog. And in some traditions, an apron is actually like a separate piece of stem construction that fits in here and just gives more meat to this very area where it's lacking it. So it'll be wider than the stem, and it'll just be like a piece that's just fit in here to this gripe area. The use of the term apron referring to parts of the stem comes from the British tradition. Historically, they liked the cod's head mackerel tail hull form. That meant that you had very bluff bows, so the hood ends of the planks needed more meat to fasten to. So they developed methods of building up stems out of smaller pieces that both optimized grain orientation and provided a broader landing for the hood ends of those planks. And so some of the components that made up the interior portion of those stem constructions were known as deadwood and aprons. It's a slow process and it's going to take a while, but if you take your time, you get yourself set up with some battens that are the appropriate size. Specifically, you'd want like a small one that represents your plank thickness so that when you bend it into place, you can see when the edge of it hits your rabbet line. And then you know you've gone deep enough. And then you want a wider one that's closer to your garboard size that you can twist into place cold and get a feel for whether or not you're getting these angles right. Because a single stick won't tell you that. You need something that's wider that you can twist into place and have a look and feel around and try and figure out the high spots. And by all means, you could model this out. I would, in a heartbeat, make a, say, 1/3 scale model out of some scrap material. And you just need like the stem and, you know, a couple feet of keel to represent this area, and do a practice job. You know, make a 1 or 2 molds. You only have to do one side, but do a practice run of how all that fits together and practice chopping the notch. And you'll gain enough knowledge doing that to make the real boat go a lot faster and easier. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions about different aspects of boat building and you need some answers to, by all means, reach out, shoot me a comment, drop me an email, whatever you like. I'm always looking for material to do little lessons on, and I'm happy to answer questions this way so more than one person can benefit from those answers. Okay? Ciao for now, folks.